The speech I'm doing a refutation on is the high school are giving too much homework to the students. Now, my proposition is that high schools are given not too much, but a reasonable amount of homework to students. So the amount of homework, or what I'm going to go over is that the amount of homework that kids are getting is reasonable, graduation rate for high schools, and solutions to public alienation. So for the amount of homework that students are getting, according to a national PTA or Parent-Teacher Association and NEA's or National Education Association's guide, helping your child get most out of homework, it is recommended that high school students should be assigned 90 to 2.5 hours of homework each night. According to the same sources, this range is where the positive line of improvement continues in high school students. Anything after that, the positive line, or the line starts to decrease into becoming counterproductive. According to the study from the ATUS, who surveyed 2,575 full-time high school students between the ages 15 and 18, the amount of time it took to finish their daily homework amounted to less than an hour. According to a MedLife study from multiple schools, 50% of students who average A's to B's report that they approximately spend an hour on homework per night, with the other 50% split evenly from students who spend more or less than an hour on homework. According to Harris Cooper, a professor of psychology and neuroscience at Duke, where he also directs the university's program of education, he believes that even though he strongly agrees with these stats, he also thinks that teachers should still have flexibility on certain subjects and certain teaching styles. So even though the recommended time for homework is 2.5 hours, he says that there should be a little bit of leeway so students don't have to only put that in amount of time, and they should be allowed to take more time to do their homework. So in my second claim, for the graduation rate of high school students, a list from National Center of Education Statistics reported that percentage of graduation from public four-year high schools in all 50 states the graduation from all 50 states is almost 85%. So kids, even with the amount of homework that they're getting, they're still staying in school. And according to these stats, from 1990 to 2010, dropout rates for high schools has even decreased by 3%. So more students are even staying in school now. And my final claim is that to prevent alienation, so in her argument, my opponent said that the amount of homework it takes students who want to participate in extracurricular activities and even sports in class will cause alienation to society, and they won't have any time to spend with their family. So on average, school sports have practice for 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on what sport you're doing. Some may even go up to 3 hours. Some kids try to juggle homework, sports, and maybe an extracurricular activity. But from what I've said previously, 1 to 2.5 hours of homework is what has been reported. Sports and other activities like clubs, which can prevent time spent with their families, and basic free time. Some people may think that this is causing alienation from learning basic social skills, but the solution to this is to opt out of doing other activities like sports or clubs if their basic skills are being at risk. So from personal experience, my high school did encourage sports, and it did encourage after-school activities, but prevented them and wouldn't let you continue with them if your grade had dropped below 2.0. And also from personal experience in high school, I took AP classes, I did both swim and polo, and some of my meets or games would even last longer than 4 hours after school ended. And I still had time to finish all my homework and get enough sleep for the next day. And I have friends who took even more than I did more sports and took more AP classes, and they still went by with passing grades. The average high school in the U.S. are scheduled to release at 2 p.m., which, if the average time it takes to complete homework is 1 to 2.5 hours, and to the extreme 3.5 hours, students will still have 5 hours of free time to spend with their family, to spend doing extracurricular activities if they chose. If they were to choose a 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Sleep schedule, which is a recommended 8-hour sleep schedule. And they could have up to 6 hours of free time for extracurricular activities or spending time with families if they were to choose a 10 to 6 sleep schedule, which is again 8 hours, assuming that high schools start at 7 a.m. Thank you. I did revise a little bit.
Okay, I'll take that one and dump that one. All right, well, you kind of summarized the advocate's argument. I didn't remember whether the graduation rates was an argument that they were making, and the alienation thing, it sounded like that was something that they were arguing. You have good counterclaims on each of the points. You don't really have much discussion of what the advocate's reasoning or evidence was, so that's a little bit problematic. But your answers, I think, the rebuttal kinds of arguments are really strong. You've got a huge amount of information that suggests that the time that is being devoted to homework is well within what is reasonable. That they've got, most spend a lot less time than what is recommended, and that you even suggest that teachers can be pretty flexible about these kinds of things, and there's not a problem with that. Here's the part where what you need to do is you need to contrast that to what the advocate's evidence was on that particular point. And I don't remember what it was, but at the moment I have no way of comparing. Yours sounds really good, but if you could say, they provided no data to show that students had more than 2.5 hours of homework a day. They provided no information that students' grades were suffering as a consequence of the amount of homework that they had. It's all asserted that they had these particular kinds of problems, when in fact we know that most students do vastly less homework than the advocate is suggesting is being done. That would make your argument better, because then I get a contrast between the position that you're taking and the one that the advocate's taking. And the same thing is true on the other points as well. The graduation rate thing, I think you've got some nice statistics on that. And I think that you diminish the issue of alienation pretty effectively. You've got a nice personal example that you illustrate. You've got kind of a way that you're analyzing the data, how much time they would have available for a variety of activities based on the scheduling sorts of things. And again, I don't know what the advocate's evidence was on that particular point, so it's hard for me to contrast what you've got to what they've got. If we were listening to this immediately afterwards, it would be easier to do. All right, thank you.